Hello, my name is Julie, and today my Goodreads friends are going to unknowingly be choosing my TBR for the week. I love Goodreads. I have been a user since I was 12. Does it need changing? Does it need to be better? Yes, but it is still my go-to place for me to post my reviews and to see other people's reviews. And it's a very popular video idea for people to read the highest or lowest rated books on their Goodreads TBR, or the most read or least read books on their Goodreads TBR. But those stats are done about the Goodreads general public, not actually about the people that I am friends with or are following on Goodreads. So a couple months ago, I had the idea of what if I read the books that specifically the people that I'm friends with on Goodreads were most into. There's not a function for Goodreads to do that, so I had to do it myself. Basically, whenever you pull up a book, Goodreads highlights the reviews of all of the people that you're friends with are following, and it tells you their rating, how they shelved it, and especially if they have any of those exclusive shelves that aren't read, stuff like a DNF shelf will show up. So months ago, I painstakingly went through every single book on my Goodreads TBR at the time that had been published already, and I marked every single rating that I saw from one of my friends. Let's see some footage of how I was feeling while I was making that spreadsheet. I'm halfway through making the spreadsheet for this video, and I hate my life. Too many books on this list. Yep, I hated my life, but I got some really good stats out of it, and more than I'm even going to cover in this video. These are all of the different things that I found out about the different books. If any of these ideas intrigue you, with an updated spreadsheet, I probably will come back to some of these. But the idea that I wanted to do today was looking at two different statistics because they ended up being pretty similar. The first of those is the highest amount of people who had read the book. Simply the books that I am most missing out on, everybody else has read it but me. And the second is the highest number of 5 stars, not the highest percentage of 5 stars out of the number of reviews that my friends gave it, or the highest average rating, purely the number of 5 stars. And of course, that means that the more people who read a book, the higher chance it has of getting a 5 star. So these two lists of books looked very similar. There was 20 possible slots for each of the top 10s of these lists, and only 12 unique books showed up, so I just decided to combine these two statistics together. I used a little point system to determine which books I should be reading off of this. That came up with a top 5, and I broke some ties just by eliminating any duplicated genres, just so I could have 3 very different books to read this week. So here are the 3 books. Oh shit, I have 2 of them. I've actually grabbed the books because I should be prepared for a video, shouldn't I? So these are the books I'm going to be reading. The first of these is The Guest List by Lucy Foley. This is a mystery thriller that came out in 2020, and it is about an exclusive wedding of this elite couple, and it is on this Irish remote island that kind of was a weird pick for them to go for. And we know that by the end of the wedding, somebody is going to end up dead, but we don't know who's dead or who did it. This is possibly the most popular mystery thriller book that's come out in the last 5 years, so this being up there was not a surprise to me. This was the #1 most read book on my TBR, with 40 people having read it. However, it did come in 10th place in the number of 5 stars, with only 6 people giving it a 5 star. Next up, I'm going to be reading The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. This is about 2 co-workers who hate each other and are opposites, but they have to work in close proximity all the time, and do they really hate each other? I basically only had this on my TBR because it was super popular at the time I first became a little bit interested in adult romance, and I've just been holding on to it on my TBR, not knowing if I will actually like this book. It was the 3rd most read book on my list, with 34 people having read it, and it was the 2nd most book in 5 stars with 12 people. And the last book I'm going to be reading is I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. This is a memoir about Jeanette's relationship with her mother, as her mother is toxic and abusive and does things such as force a eating disorder upon Jeanette as she is growing up as a child star, and she is forced to be the breadwinner of the family from the very young age of 6. I have been dying to read this one because I have heard nothing but absolutely fantastic things, and we can see that in the numbers. This was the second most read book on my Goodreads TBR, with 37 people having read it, and 21 of those reviews were a 5-star. That means it was also on an entirely different list of the highest percent of 5 stars given out. The Goodreads average rating is a 4.47, but my friends gave it a whopping 4.61. So I'm going to be knocking out all 3 of these super popular books that I have missed out on this week, and I am so excited for these. Let's get started with the guest list. Welcome to me trying to find new filming locations in my 1-bedroom apartment. I think this works. I actually do think this works, as long as I actually keep this area clean, which I never do. I currently have so much crochet stuff going on. I am 50% of the way through the guest list by Lucy Foley. One thing you can say about this lady, she knows how to write an unputdownable book. I will have problems sometimes getting through a book without picking up my phone, for instance, or just doing something else, thinking about something else. And with the Paris apartment and with this one, I'm locked in and I am going way quicker than usual. Like, I was able to read almost 50 pages on my lunch break rather than a usual 25. Let's give a more detailed synopsis. So Jules is the main editor of an online magazine, and she met this guy, Will, who is essentially doing this kind of Bear Grylls type show, and he's a B-list celebrity right now. They got engaged after only knowing each other for a couple of months, and they're getting married after being engaged for only a few months. The guest list is pretty exclusive, but we are really focusing on the wedding party. The 5 perspectives that we're following are Jules, the bride, Hannah, the +1, who is the wife of Jules's childhood best friend, Charlie. There's the best man, Jono, who doesn't seem to be as classy as anybody else there. The bridesmaid, Olivia, who is the younger sister of Jules, who can never live up to her. And the wedding planner, who owns the estate and has been doing this whole thing. We know that during the wedding, somebody is going to get murdered. We don't know who is murdered or has done the murder, and we have to figure that out. So I am 50% of the way through. There's kind of like a main timeline going on, and then there are flashes to the actual discover of the murder. In the main timeline, we have gotten to the morning of the wedding. So this is kind of an interesting setup for a murder mystery, because the murder isn't going to take place until a good amount of the way into the book. And I think that might have been a lot of the appeal of this book to people, because maybe this was shaking up the framework of the mystery genre so much. And it is kind of focusing more on the character dynamics as you're trying to predict who the person is who's going to do the murder. The book would lead you to believe that one of these 5 people is the murderer, and honestly, if it's not one of the 5, that's kind of gonna be a little bit disappointing. I have my guess who I believe the murder victim is going to be. I think the person kind of sticks out like a sore thumb that needs to get whacked. I am going to try to predict this stuff. I read The Paris Apartment earlier this year, which, after everybody loved this, nobody really liked The Paris Apartment. Or at least that's what I saw. But I had a lot of fun with that one. And I will say, I am less engaged with this one than I was in The Paris Apartment. The Paris Apartment, I was held in a chokehold. I'm not yet fully sunk in, but I'm anticipating that the back half of this is definitely going to ramp up. It is very fast to get through. I am interested in the character dynamics, and I definitely have theories. It's not shaping up so far to be a new favorite mystery thriller. I'm definitely gonna have enough time to get through all of my pages for today, which would be to page 200, but I don't know that I'm gonna have enough time to go past that today. What am I doing today? First of all, I need to feed myself. My grocery order fell through, and so I have not had all of the things that I usually have, and I have been so hungry as soon as I get home from work, and I have not planned what I'm having to eat. Every single day of my life, I have to choose what I eat, and it's freaking ridiculous. But I might make a pizza. I don't have anything special to go on it. It would probably just be a cheese pizza. But my basil plant that I bought forever ago, did I buy that in a vlog? I don't remember. I nearly killed it. I found out it was because of drainage issues. Like the soil was essentially mud. I just happened to save it. I have one stem of basil left that has revived itself. I think I'm going to be doing trivia with my sister today. My boyfriend's friend group does like this massive PowerPoint trivia night where somebody puts together like 12 different categories of trivia. I started submitting my own trivia nights, and this is the third time I have made one. And my sister and her boyfriend like to play test it for me before I actually like submit it and do the big PowerPoint night. Other than that, I am tired and hopefully I go to bed early. Hello, I did get to the 200 page mark last night, and we have had some reveals about people. Not yet who did what at the wedding. Some things were fairly predictable, some things I hadn't really thought about, and so did end up surprising me. I think it's pretty obvious that like there are some things that like are set up of like, oh, you know the reveal is going to be about this. I'm having a good time with this. Again, I just want to keep going. I don't know that I'm as like emotionally involved, and I'm definitely finishing today. I just have no idea what my evening is going to look like, if I am going to have plans tonight, if I'm having plans changes what I'm going to eat and what I'm going to do with my evening. Like, am I going to get house stuff done? Am I going to be able to edit my next video? Because I have not touched it. I have planned out my videos from now until like the end of January, week to week. I only have one space, and I don't want to immediately use that space when I might be able to use it later. Maybe I'll just force myself to work on it all in one go, which I never do. I like only doing so much of my video at a time because I get really burned out and zoned out. Regardless, I'm finishing this today. An hour later and it's over. I have finished the guest list, and I correctly guessed both the killer and the victim. I just feel like I have read enough books that, you know, are murder mystery type things that I knew exactly who was going to do what and who was going to kill who. I thought that it was interesting to have this gothic flavor to it because, you know, remote stormy island, that actually like kind of gave it a different tone than I thought it would. Also, random, but I think the name The Guest List is a weird name for this because only one of the 5 characters that we follow is on the guest list. Like, everybody else is involved in the wedding. And it says you'd kill to be on it, but nobody did have to kill to be on the list. Does that matter? Absolutely the fuck not. I thought this was good. Am I giving this like a 3.5? I gave The Pair's Apartment a 4, mostly for like pure entertainment value. Got through this really quickly, but I think things were more predictable than I would like them to have been. It's certainly not a 5-star. I have now read the most read book on my Goodreads TBR, so that's something. And now I can get started on the hating game next. Hello. I am probably a quarter of the way into the hating game. I did start it like a little bit ago, but I finally got a good chunk of the way into it. And, you know, we've started turning a corner in their relationship. So we have Lucy and we have Josh. And the two of them each were executive assistants at different publishing houses. And then these publishing houses had a merger. The CEOs have stayed separate, and kind of the two companies have stayed on their own sides, and there's a lot of tension between the two sides of the company. And nowhere is more apparent than between the two of them. Lucy is very bright and sunshiny, and she wants everybody to like her. And that is her approach to, getting her work done, is trying to be the most friendly, like approachable person she can. Josh is much colder and doesn't care if anybody likes him. It's kind of mean sometimes. And the two of them have to share a room. They have two desks that are facing each other as the CEOs are like behind the both of them. The two of them are very well known for hating each other and not getting along and stepping on each other's toes and making fun of each other and everything. So this is, of course, an enemies to lovers book. I will say, this author is doing a very good job of making my blood boil. Like, Josh is so freaking frustrating. I'm genuinely like listening to this book with a scowl on my face. They report each other to HR regularly. And honestly, that's kind of played off as like a joke by the book. That's like a big deal. If you're harassing each other enough that you keep reporting each other to HR, and the company decides to do nothing about it. These people like clearly cannot work together, but they're both forced to be in the same room all the time with nobody but each other. That's torture. They have a lot of ribbing back and forth, but like, it doesn't feel fun or funny. It feels frustrating. It feels so aggravating. The way that he's treating her, like it feels like negging. It feels like he is trying to break her down. So that this is only from Lucy's perspective. It feels like I've just realized I know a couple named John and Lucy. This is Josh and Lucy. I got freaked out for a second. But it feels like Josh is just trying to break her down bit by bit. Like he thinks he's flirting. He thinks he's flirting with her, but he is like trying to break her down bit by bit so that her confidence tanks. And then when he starts showing affection to her, she's gonna accept it because she's going to be like, oh, I need to be worthy of his good opinion. Like, that's the definition of negging, right? Because that's how that feels. And Lucy has actually, at this point in the book, confronted him about that and said, like, you have torn down my self-confidence so much that when a guy complimented me, I felt like shit. Look, I'm very picky with my romance. For me, like contemporary romance, it has to be desirable, right? Like to me, if there's like an element of like problematicness, because this is taking place in the real world, I am treating this as if it is taking place in the real world. And this is fiction. It should be better than real life. So when like uncool things happen in a romance or like a romantic lead is like problematic, it bugs me because I'm like, well, why would I read this? Like, this is the kind of shit that happens in real life. Like, why would I want to read about this? The thing is, a good enemies to lovers book makes you hate the love interest at first and love them by the end, right? So I am just hoping that Sally Thorne does a huge fucking turnaround. So at this point, only like 20% into the book or something like that, he kisses her. And I was so surprised that that happened so early on in the book. And that's made her realize that she's like physically attracted to him. But she's still like really conflicted about how she feels about him because he's been so mean to her. Like sometimes she's picking fights, but it does seem to be that he's like the larger instigator and she's mostly like doing stuff because she's feeling so defensive and attacked. They are both vying for the same promotion. It's like the CEOs have created a position that is directly under them. So whichever of them gets the promotion will be the direct report of the other person. And they've kind of made a thing of like, oh yeah, if you get the job, I'll quit. Right now, he has started doing a couple of nice things. It feels like he's trying to be alpha. He's being possessive over her in a way that doesn't make sense. The way that he interacts with her feels really immature. He's supposed to be this snooty, stuck-up business guy, and he is interacting with her like he is a 5-year-old boy on the playground tugging on a girl's pigtails because he likes her. She has had an actual loathing for him, and like for a reason. He like makes fun of her, belittles her, literally and figuratively. Let's be very real. They do not go 5 seconds without talking about how tiny and small Lucy is. It's funny, the character's name is Lucy, but she is also in the movie played by Lucy Hale. In regards to shortness, Lucy Hale was actually a very good pick for that. I am planning on watching the movie after I read this book. Well, if I don't despise the book, which I don't think I am. I don't hate the writing of this book. I don't hate like the plotting of this book. I just genuinely, like the enemy part is working on me so well that I don't know if like the author is doing a good job yet or a bad job. Does that make sense? I've been talking about this for a long time. Today at work, I got to wear my Hurricanes jersey. This is I have a signed Svech jersey because he's my favorite player. But it also just so happens to be the first big day of the NHL season. The season started last week, but today is the first day where most teams have a game. We're playing fantasy hockey. I might see if any one of my big players has a game. Let's get through some more stuff, shall we? Josh just called Lucy a little liar. Lucy's played by Lucy Hale of Pretty Little Liars. Fantastic coincidence. This lighting is going to be weird, but we're dealing with it. Friday is over, work from home is over, and I am heading into a long weekend with zero plans. Monday we have off because it's a federal holiday. It seems to be pretty nice outside, so I might go out on my porch and hang out, maybe do my reading there. I really want to play a video game. I just don't know if I'm gonna have the time for it today. I have gotten 50% of the way through The Hating Game. This book is way longer than I thought it was going to be. Just in terms of like how fast things are moving with them, I definitely anticipated more of like the hate stuff going on for longer in the book. And at this point, like at the 50% mark, they're kind of seeing each other. I'm having a good time, but that does not mean that I don't have problems here or there. So that's good, because that is bare minimum romance for me, is like, can I have a good time with this? They keep mentioning how freaking short she is and how tall he is. They keep mentioning how he smells all the time. Why does he have 8 different scents? He's got a specific scent. It's like pine and cedar or something like that. When she goes into his house, it's like the house smells like oranges. When he gets out of the gym, his sweat smells like rainwater. No, the fuck it. Look, I have a terrible nose. That is not a COVID-related thing. That is since birth, have a bad nose. No, he does not smell like rainwater. I don't know what you're on, but he does not smell like rainwater. Let's move. I don't know. No. Oh, that's worse. I look like Paul Atreides. Okay, this is better. He's getting better, and he's doing sweet things and like making it clear that he does like her. I do think this guy is a little bit controlling. I just don't think being controlling over another person's life, even when it's supposed to be like in a flirty way, is ever cute. It's not like he's in the bedroom doing something where he's being controlling. It's like in real life, having a conversation, trying to establish a relationship. And I don't think that the reader is supposed to see it that way. I think it's supposed to be hot or romantic or whatever. Also, our main character, girl, she talks about being touched to her all the time, and she is not joking. She has a problem, and this dude is like, back up. I'll definitely get through this audio this weekend, no less, because I have to. It's due at the library. In the meantime, I have also gotten 100 pages into I'm Glad My Mom Died. I think this lighting's super weird. It looks like I have like an elven filter on. I swear I don't have a filter on my face. The camera looks weird right now, and maybe the footage won't, but the camera looks like it. This is a lot. This is really well done so far, and done with a lot of nuance. This starts when Jeanette is 6 years old, and she is first being put into acting things by her mother. It was her mother's dream to be an actress, and it didn't happen. And so she is putting her youngest child as a child actor and putting all of the financial pressure of the entire family on Jeanette being successful in acting. Jeanette, even though she is the youngest of 4, she is definitely the parentified, anxious child who is doing everything in her power to like make her mom happy. Some of her brothers might have a little bit of that, or we're seeing from her, and we're also seeing the brothers not always being picked on the same way that Jeanette is, but we do see that they are also being entirely mistreated. She's abusive to them in every way that is not physically beating them up or essaying them. They have a home where everybody could sleep in their own bed, but her mom is such a hoarder that she has taken up all of her children's beds with them, and they have to sleep on mats on the floor. Can you imagine being able to afford a livable space for your children and taking that away from them? She also clearly has anger issues. She breaks things all the time. And she also has really manic swings where she goes from very, very happy to very, very sad to angry to whatever, just all over the place in seconds. And Jeanette, who has been raised in this, is attuned to her mother's every single thought and all that she wants in this world, because her mom is the center of her world, is to make her mom happy. And she has gone to acting because of that, even though she doesn't even want to act. She likes writing, she likes dancing, she doesn't care about acting, but she seems to be pretty good at it. In like the next chapter, she is going to book iCarly, so she probably is about 12 then. She has started showing signs of OCD. She is not getting the treatment that she needs because her mother denies that there's absolutely nothing wrong with anybody in her family. How could there be? And also she has pushed, at this point, an eating disorder on her daughter, and medical professionals and other adults have told her, hey, I think your daughter has anorexia. And she's like, oh no, absolutely she doesn't. She is also anorexic and is purposely putting that onto Jeanette. Because Jeanette is a child actor. She's about to reach puberty. Once she hits puberty, she won't be able to play all of the younger roles that she has been able to play because she is so small. She can pass for 7 on screen and beat out all the other 7-year-olds because she's a better actor because she's older. But she is like, the way to make my mom happy is to stay small. So I am not going to eat anything. I haven't mentioned it yet in this video, but I was a huge fan of iCarly. For several years, iCarly was my favorite show. I loved Sam, and I know it is about to get into the Nickelodeon part soon, and I know I'm just gonna be so devastated. It's so upsetting seeing how this mother treats her children. There doesn't seem to be a way out, and because Jeanette is living in it, she doesn't know how messed up the world she's living in is. I do wish I was able to get my hands on the audiobook for this, but I'm not gonna pass up a free physical copy, so. I am so glad that she was able to put this book out and get some freaking compensation and healing out of this. It's as fantastic as everyone's saying it is. I just know it's gonna get worse. Hello, I have finished The Hating Game. I thought there was like 7% more of this book. The audiobook's like 14 hours or something like that. But at the 93% mark, there is like a bonus chapter of her next book. I was very glad. I was about to go out for a walk with the audiobook, so I'm glad that I hadn't set that aside for nothing and then have it not last my whole walk. Some of my problems were solved. For one thing, Josh fully apologizes for his behavior, takes responsibility for stuff. I'm like, that's good. And I think there was like a lot of fun rom-com stuff. I think the chemistry between these characters, off the charts. I know that they've known each other for a long time before the start of this book. They're like, oh my god, I love you. I'm like, you don't know this person well enough for that, but you know, whatever, it's rom-com land. I thought this was good. It didn't blow me away, but I had fun reading it, and I would be interested in watching the movie if the movie had good reviews. This is above average in the rom-coms that I have read this year. That is a type of win, is it not? It was interesting that like we did have like our main character like mess up in the way that she treats the love interest. I feel like we don't always see that all the time, but like she kind of objectifies him a bit, and he's like, hey, that's not cool, and she's like, cool, I'm not gonna do that anymore. Honestly, I thought the ending was a little bit abrupt. There were like things that I expected to come full circle at the end that didn't didn't necessarily. This book definitely has like an anti like nice guy agenda, like not to like the full extent. Like we don't have somebody who's like super evil or something like that. They go on and on about how like Josh isn't a nice guy, and I'm like, he's just like not very social. Teasing her like they're on the playground thing. He's like, yeah, people don't think I'm like long-term serious material. They don't think I'm a nice guy. And I'm like, I think by the end of this, we learned that he is a nice guy, not that nice guys are bad. So I think there could have been a little bit of an expansion of that conversation. I had fun with this, even when there were some things I had to complain about. So like, I think I'm giving this like a 3.5. I don't know how much I'm gonna think about this now that I'm done with the book. It was fun, but I don't think it deserved to have like 50% 5 stars. Shrug. I definitely was under the impression that I was going to freaking despise this book, and that didn't happen, so that's good. Good news, I did actually find the audiobook for I'm Glad My Mom Died. So I think the last 50 pages of the book or so, I'm gonna try listening to the audiobook. It is narrated by her, and she has been pretty emotional in her delivery. I might finish out this whole vlog today. It was definitely the plan to finish I'm Glad My Mom Died today, so I've already finished Hating Game, so if I get all my plans, I'll be done with this vlog today. With 1 minute left of my walk, I finished I'm Glad My Mom Died. The audiobook definitely helped me get this done in a little bit more of a timely manner, and I'm glad I did manage to pick it up. I don't think that it really enhanced my experience as much because I felt like I could get the emotion from the words just as much as I could the audiobook. So I'd say I recommend the audiobook as much as I do the physical book. I just think that this is getting the accolades it's getting for a reason. Like, this is an important memoir, and her being famous is almost irrelevant to the story of this book. This same things that happened to her and how that affected her throughout years could have happened to anybody, regardless of if they were a celebrity. So I think that the merit of this outshines the fact that she is famous, and I think that's what you want out of a celebrity memoir. Have I ever read a celebrity memoir before? I've read memoirs that are famous, but I don't know that I've ever read a celebrity memoir before. On the cover it says an important cultural document, and I agree with that. I think that this is very of the time right now, of people doing like therapy work on themselves and really trying to undo a lot of toxic cycles that parents put on children. One thing that surprised me was that it focused on the iCarly days and the Nickelodeon days way less, or like the shows themselves weren't that relevant to the book. Like, she talks about being on set a couple of times, and obviously she talks about the person who she only refers to as the creator, who, you know, a lot of bad stuff has come out about him, and she obviously has a very negative opinion of him. It's really hard seeing like up front this discussion of eating disorders and a lot of like mental stigma stuff, but I think that she did a very good job portraying what was a real life journey and how like progress isn't always linear, and it's a long struggle for years to get out of something like that. And yeah, I just think that this was well put together, which is important on top of a good important story. I do not rate nonfiction a lot of the time. There's a few nonfictions here and there that I give ratings to. I don't feel a strong need to put a star rating on this, if that makes sense. It's very clear to me that Jeanette has done a lot of work on herself to be able to pick apart her own life so much in this way. Clearly shows a lot of hard work has been done. Thank you so much to Simon & Schuster for sending me a finished copy of this, because this is definitely something that I am going to want to share with others and pass around to people. So it's great, and I'm glad that this is getting the attention that it deserves. So that means I have read all 3 of the books for this vlog. This is the only book that I read here that I'm like, this deserves to be one of the most read books on my shelves and one of the highest rated books on my shelves. The other 2, I get why people would like it, but maybe not them being the most popular things on my list. This vlog definitely got me to pick up books that I might never have gotten to, The Hating Game, and pick up an author that I've enjoyed before and read something a little bit out of my comfort zone, being a memoir. So there were a ton of statistics that I was able to pull from me doing the spreadsheet. If I were to do another video of this in the future, I would definitely update my spreadsheet, so there would be different books on the list. Some books that I've read would be taken off the list, more books that I want to read would be added to the list, and just all of those stats would be updated. The book that was on the most people's TBR and also had the highest percentage of being on TBR. So like maybe there's 15 people who have it on their TBR and only 1 person has read it, that sort of thing. The highest percentage of 5 stars from people who have read it, the highest average rating, and then also what I called the friend bias. So I took the Goodreads average rating and the friend average rating and looked at the difference there and to see which books my friends liked more than the general public, which I thought was interesting. And there's probably a couple other things I could pull from there. But I did have one last statistic that I wanted to talk about. I just wanted to see how the genres interacted with my friends, because I had a suspicion based on what types of books were coming up in my highest rated stats. This is the breakdown of how many books per genre I had. What surprised me is that fantasy was so close in number to the other ones. I had 48 fantasy books, and then the second most was literary fiction and then mystery thriller horror. Both had 47 books. Even though fantasy is my most read genre and I read probably like twice the amount of fantasy as either of those things, and I realized that's probably because I read series, and when I have series on my Goodreads, I only put 1 book in the series. So if I am on book 2 is going to be on my TBR, book 3 is not going to be. And I could also see I have 2 different TBR shelves on Goodreads. I have my want to read and my keeping an eye out, so books that I'm kind of like bookmarking for later to see if I want to read them. And I did notice that more of the mystery thriller horror and literary fiction picks were on that other list. I was more sure about the fantasy that I wanted to read. But here's the thing. Romance was the category that I had the lowest number of books added. It is not a genre I read a lot. It is a genre that I don't give high ratings to. However, it had an average of 9.57 readers per book. That is twice the amount of any of the other genres. The second most was classics with 5.67 because everybody's going to their English lit class and they're reading those books. So I'm like, what's up with this disproportion? Why is everybody reading these romance books? And there's a couple of reasons I can come up with. One, I am picky with the romance books that I put on my shelf. Maybe I only am putting the most popular books that I'm hearing about, or the highest rated books, or books that I have directly heard from people who I'm friends with Goodreads about those. Maybe that's something. Or it could be causation. Romance readers are more likely to have a Goodreads or fill out their Goodreads. Or maybe romance readers read more books because the books are shorter. Some evidence for that would be that the fantasy had the highest number of people with that book on their TBR, and romance was right behind that. So people are interested in the fantasy books, they're just not getting to them. Is it because fantasy books are longer, they're not updating their Goodreads, or what is it?
Hi, it's Editing Julie. I started making the graphs of this video while I was editing this, and I also found one thing that also would be evidence of a couple of the things that I postulated, and that is that romance readers rated the books that I had on my TBR 5 stars twice as often as the second most genre. That either means, again, I'm putting the most popular books on my TBR, or a new idea, that romance readers are much more likely to give a book 5 stars. That's another thing that could totally influence how these books are appearing on my statistics. So just thought that was interesting.
Or it could be that I have disproportionately added people on Goodreads who are strictly romance readers reading a genre that I do not read mostly. So maybe that means that I should try to find more people who are doing reviews in the genres that I read the most or I'm wanting to get into more. Absolutely no shit to romance readers. It's just when it's not your preferred thing, maybe you shouldn't be consuming so much stuff about it. Anyway, that means that that is the end of the video. So if you would like to help influence a future Goodreads video, you should definitely go check out my Goodreads and we can be friends on there. DM me or comment that you're adding me on Goodreads and I'll add you back. I really try not to add people that I don't know or don't know where I know them from. Just let me know that you're adding me and I'll friend you back. And if you'd like to find me anywhere else on the internet, like my Goodreads or my book club or my readathons or literally anything that I do, you can find me at that link in the description. And if you'd like to see more of my videos, like maybe there's more stuff that I'm going to be doing with Goodreads in the next month. Maybe, I don't know. You can hit that subscribe button. I would really appreciate it if you did. Let me know what books on your Goodreads you have not read yet, that you have been missing out on and that you need to read. But thank you so much for watching, and as always, I'll see you in the next one.